when you were talking about embracing like your own anger, your own rage, and owning that and embracing that, you were moving and your voice sounded different and there was energy. And the thing is that actually internalizes, that turns that, because the anger and rage doesn't go away. You know, we're trying to get meditation and zone it out, or I shouldn't feel angry. It actually just doesn't get expressed, but it turns inwards. It doesn't disappear. So it becomes then an attack on ourselves. You know, hey, I'm not this, or collapse into, I couldn't do that.
Today, I'm joined by Fiona Bell, a somatic therapist with over 30 years of experience. Fiona combines somatic experiencing, Gestalt psychotherapy, and creative arts to help clients heal and connect with themselves. We'll explore how simply being with someone can be one of the most powerful tools in therapy and the surprising impact it has on our nervous system. Welcome, Fiona.
Thank you, Laura. Just lovely to be here.
Can you tell us a bit about your work, who you work with, the type of work that you do?
Yeah. So I probably come to this work from having done my own journey. So it's my own journey with particular somatic experiencing, dream work, Gestalt, that brought me to a place in my life where I could discover meaning or make sense of myself. So that's kind of what's drawn me to the work. And I tend to blend and combine like lots of like different modalities. I've got a broad range. And mostly I just meet a person where they're at. Like some of my baseline work is just offering people a sense of connection, that they're able to maybe come as themselves. Sometimes for the first time, a sense of being with another person and a sense of relative safety. And then I work, like a lot of my work is baseline working with a nervous system, particularly informed by Stephen Porges, who I think is amazing. So it's allowing people a platform for regulation in order to be able to deal with some of the stuff, past experiences, scary experiences, overwhelming experiences, etc. A lot of times people are coming and presenting with whether it's stress or anxiety or fear or rage or like different health conditions like pain conditions, IBS, fibromyalgia, panic attacks, etc. So the background that I have, the training understands that lots of our physiological conditions, lots of our health conditions, lots of our emotional conditions, thought patterns, cognitive, is really linked to nervous systems. That's one of the baselines I work. And then I bring everything else in to support that. Yeah.
Can you say a bit more about the link between those kind of physical conditions that we've traditionally thought of as physical medical conditions, how the nervous system impacts those, how the mind is involved, for want of a better word?
One of the things, the understandings that I've been really taken by in terms of polyvagal is understanding that it's all one. So our physiology is linked to our thought patterns, linked to our like physical symptoms in our bodies, into our emotional states, psychological states, spiritual states. So it's all one, which is actually quite amazing for us as human beings, And generally, it's often driven by our actual physiology in the first instance. So it's a nervous state that drives the story. Yeah. So we might have like particular like health conditions or pain conditions, but they're often like a physiological response. Maybe our nervous system is working harder than it needs to work, and the energy gets bound up like in our system, forming like health conditions, which ironically or paradoxically, those pain conditions are actually a way of our bodies and nervous system doing its very best to protect us. Because when it takes the like full impact of the energy in our systems and takes it away from our heart, from working too hard, it kind of finds its way into whether it's like stomach conditions or IBS. It actually takes that energy, binds it up in the symptoms to protect our hearts and stuff so that we're able to survive. So it's actually adaptive. Yeah.
When you say heart, are you talking about our physical heart or our emotional heart?
Both.
Or both?
They're all linked. But I think the baseline is like our physical heart. because often like stress, people might like connect to like a beating heart, or thumping heart, working very, very hard. When our hearts start to work harder, our physiology takes over and it kind of reduces our heart rate. And that can, I'm talking a little bit of gibberish here. Cut.
Okay. Cut.
Oh, that is just rubbish.
Is it?
It's not rubbish, but I think I'm waffling
Okay.
all over the place.
No, you're
Am I
good.
going okay?
Yeah, you're going really well.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because this is news to a lot of people. So your
Okay.
explanation is, yeah, it's good. Yeah. Maybe I'll ask the question again.
Okay.
When you say our heart, are you talking about our physical heart or our emotional heart?
Both. But primarily in terms of polyvagal theory, it's our physical heart. Because when our systems perceive like threat, so our nervous system is always working, even below conscious awareness, and always having this radar. It's quite amazing. This radar is always scanning our environment and our physical self to pick up like a sense of threat. And that's actually to protect us. So when our nervous systems, maybe based on our past history experiences, picks up a sense of threat, then our physiology starts driving really hard and our heart rate starts like increasing. People can connect to this, like sweating or palpitations or very fast rate in heart. But our physiology has got a built-in mechanism. When our heart's working that hard, our physiology protects our heart to keep us alive, slows down our heart rate. That can end up like with another like nervous system state, but the symptoms, the energy that gets bound up in that end up dissipating into our body in the form of like various symptoms. And that might be something like IBS or chronic fatigue. And although those symptoms are the things that people feel, this is like the problem, this is a problem with my nervous system, it's actually a really clever way of our nervous systems holding and containing all that energy that would otherwise actually kill us. Yeah. So it helps us survive. Yeah. So then the work that I do, the somatic work then, is working with the various symptoms that arise. Sometimes it can be in the body or sometimes it can be fear states, fear being in the world. And it supports nervous system to start renegotiating and discharging some of that bound up energy. So symptoms then start to lessen. Yeah. But yeah.
And so where does this begin? Where does this dysregulation or the nervous system being in that state of stress, where does that come from?
We are, like as human beings, as biological beings, we're just hardwired. Our nervous system is wired for survival. Yeah. So our brain physiology is right back to the days of dinosaurs and the first early life forms on the planet. So we still have that architecture, that very early architecture, right up to, so that's the brain stem. And then we have the amygdala that does lots of the work. People probably connect with feeling like fear, feeling rage, or feeling shame or whatever. The amygdala is overworking. And then we've got the newer part of our brain called the cortex, the human part, which allows us to plan and think. It also tries to make meaning, to find interpretations, to nearly control our experience so we can say, oh, I'm like this because. And that's great in a way. That's a human drive just to find meaning. But sometimes our newer part of the brainstem it starts thinking it's the whole story. So our thought pattern of like what's happening can often be different to our like somatic story, the somatic narrative. Mm-hmm. So we try and work with the two and like align the two. Yeah. So I don't know if I've answered that for you, Laura, or there's something.
So, yeah, it's just essentially who we are as people that we do, or, as living beings that we experience stress and our nervous system responds to it to keep us alive.
That's right. That's right.
And what's the difference between just experiencing stress and then something that gets stuck or keeps recurring or becomes a fear or an anxiety that's always present.
Yeah. I suppose there's the normal kind of level of stress, a little bit like us having a podcast, but you can still know that you're okay. Yeah, so there's still a sense of safety. And it's contextual, so it makes sense. Then there's another level of stress that happens when it can be out of the blue, like 0 to 100. We're suddenly feeling very, very stressed and not knowing quite like what has happened, And for some people, many people that I work with, this can all be like a chronic state where people are saying, I actually don't know safety, or I don't know any other state apart from this. And that's because our systems are doing what they're designed to do, but they're dealing with our present moment as if our past is actually happening now. So it hasn't separated out past experiences from this moment. Yeah.
So in that way, something that we experienced at a previous time as a child or a traumatic experience from somewhere in our lives, it can kind of show up and we can't differentiate whether we're actually in danger right now or if it's the old feeling.
That's right. Because we mightn't even know what has like sparked this or what has triggered it. But it's like an overwhelming feeling of actually there's something wrong right now, or an imminent sense of foreboding or dread or acute fear that the world's out to get me or something is terribly wrong with me. Yeah. So this is a system that's just on, our amygdalas are like switched up, that radar. It's just like switched up, working harder, and it just misinterprets our present. So some of the work is helping our systems, which are designed to heal and recover, helping our systems to loosen the very tight, sometimes locked in connections between our past and our present. So instead of carrying our past with us, like now, and it driving us, our past, which forms us, it becomes our gold actually, can set back, and it become our past instead of an uninvited, intruder into our everyday. Yeah.
You mentioned it can become our gold. Can you say more about that?
This is what I find in this work, which becomes amazing. And, with everybody, and I notice in my own life as well, it's actually the experiences that have been very stressful or overwhelming, or experiences that we might have had shame to. They actually become, when we discover that they're actually the experiences that form us into the people that we become now, that we discover this innate capacity and a strength and a way of being in the world that we wouldn't have had if we don't have those experiences, Yeah, so they're formative. They're formative for us, and they become the rich, I sometimes describe it, the Japanese Kintsugi, they have these bowls, these earthenware bowls, and they get, it might be an everyday bowl and gets broken, but it's the beautiful metaphor for us human beings, because they repair that very ordinary everyday bowl with gold, with seams of gold, and it becomes then more valuable, through its brokenness and through its gold seams that run through it. And then it becomes something, on a shelf to be appreciated. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like the human condition as well. It's our fractures and our brokenness, or like a piece too much here, a piece not enough there, that actually becomes our gold and our richness that adds to us. We discover that's part of me and part of my wealth and part of my worth. Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful thing about therapy and the work that you do, that something that somebody is carrying that feels like a burden and feels like a trauma and something they really wish hadn't happened to them or that they hadn't experienced. And there's no changing that. And yes, if we had a magic wand, we would like that not to have happened to them. But through therapy they can find the gifts that come with that and the way of meeting themselves deeply through that pain and that traumatic experience.
And sometimes, Laura, I'm thinking of a few people that I work with. And it might be experiences of being told you're too much or you're not enough. And some of those characteristics and behaviours that they have, they feel then I'm too much or I'm not enough. But often in the work, just spontaneously, examples of, like just spontaneous examples of a situation in life where actually that quality has been needed. You know, maybe I'm too much, and you discover it's that quality actually that you want to keep, that's part of you, and that quality has supported you to like discover things that you mightn't have otherwise discovered, you know? Yeah. So I'm thinking of particular examples, but yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when someone comes to you in a state of stress, in a state of nervous system activation or whatever you might describe it as, what is your objective when they come to you?
Generally, it's like offering a little moment of connection, Laura. So when people come in, they feel, oh, there's something so badly wrong with me, or I'm like so stressed I'm going off the rails, or I'm going completely crazy, or whatever. So people come feeling they're very different from everybody else and they're overwhelmed with this experience. So often just offering like little moment of human connection, because that actually supports us, and then offering an experience of actually us humans, we're more similar than we are different. So we've lots more in common. We might have like different textures and different experiences and whatever, but at our core, we're actually much more similar. So I think offering a little bit of connection to the degree that a person feels like safe enough to be with. For some of us, it's like needing closer connection. For other people, it's, I'm not so sure, you know, being wary in the world. So offering a little tiptoe into connection. So that creates a sense of, I think it's a human just being with, you know, that becomes so soothing and such a balm for our systems, for our whole self. Yeah. So just offering space just to come and like be as you are, you know, and discover there's nothing at the core wrong. That becomes really important. There's nothing wrong with people. So there might be things that people would like to change about themselves, or there might be things that people would like to feel differently or do differently. But at the core, there's nothing wrong. But what I offer then is some connections that you open up other ways of being. So it doesn't always have to be this one way, this anxious way or fearful way or rageful way that I have of being in the world. So it's to open other ways.
Yeah. Giving people more avenues than the one they have adapted to be in, that there might be a little bit more choice about how they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, one of the amazing things about humans as well is just like neuroplasticity. So we are always growing and always developing, and we can always like discover and find and learn new ways of being, which is like amazing. So sometimes we have like a well-worn groove, you know, that we think is our identity. That's me. I'm always like that. I always get nervous in these situations, or I'm too afraid to try that. Or so we get a well-worn path that we end up like stuck in a groove and feeling really limited and afraid and stuck. And then like just connection, because healing happens in the moment. And healing just happens in like relationship and connection. So it becomes then other ways of being. Our brains and are just primed for it to discover naturally a new way of being. So like I describe therapy, like I'm thinking one person and I don't think she'd mind me saying it, but she describes it as, she says, ease is the therapy. And I said, that's it. That's it. So we joke that could be a book on a shelf someday. But it's like the ease, discovering like ease, which is our natural state, becomes the therapy. Some people come and think, yeah, I've got to really work at this. I've got to really dig, and I've got to strip back this and really go into my past and bring all that up. And we do that, but in a way that's easeful, that always works within capacity. So it's never like an overwhelm, you know. It might be taking little pieces of life story as they emerge in now, in the present moment, like a little fractal. So taking a little moment in the now that contains the whole of the picture, and then working with ease to support all those other states to be expressed or discharged and stuff. So, yeah.
It makes me think, I just get an image in my mind of like a little hexagonal tile where you know, there's this one piece that we're going to be with in this place of ease that we've found together, and that has a ripple effect out. And then, you know, there's another little piece that you be with in ease, and that has a ripple effect out. And it just to get this image of the system changing very gently, not through efforting and dragging out all your trauma and unpacking it. But yeah, what you're describing sounds really beautiful.
Laura, that's exactly it. You know, I think, so Peter Levine is one of my teachers, but he was using like a metaphor, like you create like a little ease, a little island. So like your hexagon, one little island, and that becomes a little bit of supportive ground within the midst of everything else. And then you have another moment, and that's another island, and then another island. And over time in the work, those islands start connecting. So it becomes like more of a landmass. So people instead feel I've got this like solid supportive ground in order to be able to then deal with and process all of the other stuff. So instead of being caught up in the whirl, it's like steady ground to be able to look and be able to, what we call touch into, little bit by little bit, all of the unprocessed overwhelm or stress or trauma in our systems. Yeah.
It sounds like, to me, something that you're describing is that when someone comes in a state of stress or angst or fear or rage or whatever it might be, that they're finding themselves going to automatically and they don't know how to do it a different way, that you have such capacity to be with that with them and for that state to be okay and to connect with them right there and bring, it's almost like using your regulation and your ground that you've developed to be able to help them find that in the moment with you.
That's exactly it, Laura. You know, for us therapists, you know, and I take this work like very seriously myself. So it's, I have a metaphor myself. So it's almost like one of those little like landing ships that it goes, connects in. So it's like I feel myself anchored. So when I regulate in the moment, then we're offering like co-regulation because we're always speaking to each other, you know, and our nervous systems speak to each other. So it offers like a regulation and a co-regulation to another person so they can start experiencing an island of safety or a little hexagon, you know, of being with that starts to support then the whole nervous system to reorganize. You know, like when you were talking about the little hexagons, I have the image, you know, those cogs, like, and you get one cog, you turn one little cog, and then another cog turns another cog, and our whole systems are like that. You turn one little piece, and the whole cogs start working, and the whole cogs start reorganizing to more ease, and that creates ripple effects. So it's, of course, a ripple effect in our own systems, in co-regulation and being with another. But the ripples start happening outside of ourselves. They start happening in relationships when we do our own work. happen in our own relationships, family relationships, community relationships, friendships, and beyond that. So it starts rippling out. And my own like personal kind of theory or view on it is it also starts rippling like across time. So sometimes people have relationships or difficult relationships with people who've passed. And yeah. So when our systems start reorganizing, it's almost like we're continuing to do the work and continuing to heal those relationships, even though a person has passed. So it's beyond time. So it's like we're healing a lineage of ancestry, and we're also doing something for the forward generations. So it's like becoming, the more we find some regulation in being within our own self, the more like life and our relationships and the world starts like reorganizing around us. Like I imagine a world where everyone had access to more regulation.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember being in therapy at one point and just kind of having this realization through the conversation with my therapist that any time we spent feeling really present and grounded, connected to each other and easeful, it was like an investment in our future responses. What you're saying as well, also our past.
Yes.
Lineage, past experiences, everything finds that little bit more ease.
Utterly. You know, and because I'm thinking of moments now, as you describe as well, both with people I work with or friends, family, you know, a colleague, you know, I'm thinking. And just when both of us can hold that intention for each other of not having to be anything other than ourselves as we are in this moment. You know, that we're enough as we are, just in the moment. And we don't need to try or work or impress or do anything else. Just be. And the support that starts happening for that. So we were just holding the intention. I'm thinking of one example, holding the intention for each other. You know, that each of us also have the innate ability to heal and recover. And it was like washes of, you know, those lovely like hormones and stuff that move through us that support connection, but start supporting like creativity, energy, curiosity, like healthier connections with people in relationships. It becomes amazing. It's like a natural thing that we have in our bodies that actually really supports us, you know? Yeah.
Something else that comes to mind as you're speaking about your work, how important is it to your work that you have done your own work and continue to do your own work?
That's the cornerstone, you know. It's the foundation piece. I was saying a little bit at the start that it's my own work that took me into this field when I could suddenly, and over time, but it's like I call it a sudden thing as well because it feels like a complete light bulb, that I suddenly could understand and accept myself in all of the things that, you know, that I would judge or feel shame about. So it became so life-giving for me that I could feel I could be more part of life. And then as I do my work, a curious thing happens with people that I work with. Lots of people come that seem to have like similar stories, experiences to myself. And I notice that as I do my work, I have capacity to hold people in a whole myriad of stuff. So it feels that it grows my container, you know, that I can be even with the most like harrowing of stories or the greatest grief or the deepest shame, that it feels like I can, if I do my work, it creates this holding container of where I feel very anchored and just offering safety for someone to come with their stuff, you know, and not feeling this is too much or somebody can't handle this. Yeah, that's what it supports. So it's a lifelong work. you know.
It really strikes me that you could have all the knowledge in the world about healing, about trauma, about how to work with different presentations, but if it's only coming from the head, there's not going to be, you know, us as therapists, we need that physiological safety in all of these areas and presentations and emotions.
Yes.
And if we can't be grounded in that and have capacity for that in ourselves, any advice or strategy or different way of thinking that we might bring to the client is only just going to land on the surface.
That's right. That's right. And it might just be a tool or a strategy that people will try and feel some temporary relief with, but it doesn't change like a core experience for them. But it's that whole landing and holding. Like when people come, you can, our systems are very intuitive actually. So somebody can come and you can have a sense, can this person hold me safely? Has this person got capacity? So even you can feel that, you know, and then people coming in can feel, you know, Fiona's maybe, you know, people have joked at time, I think you can resonate with this, you know, it's a joke. Yeah. You know, so people can feel it if you have done your work or doing your work or have lived experience or just capacity to be with it. Yeah. So we can spot it.
I'm reminded of a friend I sent to you actually, and I know she doesn't mind me saying this, that when she first met you and laid eyes on you, she just wanted to cry with relief and just happiness, I suppose, that she was like, oh, I can already feel that this is a person I'm safe with.
Oh, that really touches me, Laura.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, those moments. And when any of us like have a moment like that and a person that we can just be with, and I experience this with you as well, Laura, you know, you can just be with and have a sense of like safety with whatever, you know, and I'm not going to be judged here, you know, and she's not going to think I'm this or that or whatever, or expect more of me, you know. It's just like when we can come, right, this is me, and the relief that gives, you know, even just to be able to have that sense of I could cry with this, even just as I'm listening to myself right now. It's like our system doesn't have to hold on to that. You know, you can have like drop down a little bit and have a relief and, you know, like tears. I love this, and I sometimes quote this song by an Irish artist, and she was only 19, like Sinead Lohan, and she like wrote this incredible music. So she wrote a lyric, and I think I must have my own version of this lyric over times, but it's inspired by her. But it's like, tears form a river that carry us somewhere new, you know. So like tears wash the heart and they form a river that carries us somewhere new. And I think, gorgeous. So thank you.
That's really beautiful. I love that. I'm a bit blank.
You're doing so well, Laura.
Thank you.
You're doing so well. Thank you, because it's like settling me down, because I was like, whoa, like dizzy at the start. You know,
you're doing amazing.
Kind of finding my way into the chair and in presence and stuff now. Thanks.
No, you're speaking really beautifully. Yeah.
Questions are gorgeous. It's like, I want to come to you, Laura.
That's nice. I wonder if we think of something else that maybe I could ask about dreams.
Yes.
So dream work is one of the approaches that you use.
Yes.
Can you explain how you incorporate that into therapy and kind of what we can get from dreams in terms of what's actually happening for us?
Dreams and dream work is one of my great passions and something I love to work with. So I tend to now blend it with the somatic work. But dreams, sometimes if I describe dreams to people, they're like a best friend, you know, somebody, if you imagine that you had a best friend, you know, somebody utterly on your side, somebody who's got your back, somebody who sees you with eyes that see you as amazing and strong and capable and brave and all those things that maybe you don't see in yourself. Like a friend that's maybe so intuitive that they can almost like see things, see ahead of time, see your back, etc. So dreams come in service of health and wholeness. I think that was Jeremy Taylor had said that. I think a lovely quote. But dreams come to really support us. So even the most embarrassing dream or the scariest dream or, you know, the dream where we're so, you know, we're scared or frightened or confused, all those dreams actually support, they come from our psyche to support us. So within a dream, there'll always be, which is the way I work, there'll always be some kind of ground of regulation, a ground of connection, a ground of well-being. So there's something in every single dream that's like a ground of support that we can feel to hold us. And then dreams, like a good way to start it, look at dreams is each part of the dream is maybe an aspect of ourselves that we haven't like integrated or maybe we disown. And that can include like what we call golden shadow, like our capacity and our capability. Things, great things that we are about ourselves that we don't. We often deny those. So dreams start accessing all those parts of us. And then we can work somatically by exploring each part of the dream as a symbol. It's like a symbolic language, you know, pre-verbal language, an old language that we can start like embodying those parts or imagine what part does that serve or how is this part trying to get my attention? You know, what am I ignoring in life or not seeing? So they become then ways to, they're like a mirror. So a mirror looking back at us that supports us in a very loving way, even though it might not feel like that. When you explore a dream, it's a loving experience and can support us then to greater like wholeness. You know, we're back to the metaphor of the little cog, you know, so it starts to shift a little cog where we start to organize in ourselves or feel like more ground or more strength or more capacity or less scared, you know. So dreams can be, they can be general dreams, they can be trauma dreams, so they're a really nice way of like working and processing trauma as well, just little bit by little bit, like moving towards, with enough safety, moving towards those parts that are really scaring us or overwhelming us. So dreams are, yeah.
So as you're speaking, I'm imagining, you know, scary dreams and thinking, I don't know where there's been any ground in that or any support in that, or I actually don't want to look at that part that came up in the dream.
Yes.
It sounds like you're saying the subconscious or out of awareness part of us is kind of bringing something up for us to see.
Yes. There's always, in all of us, we have our nervous systems, I think I said at the start, we're wired for survival. So when our nervous systems are scanning below our awareness for signs of threat, they're doing that as a particular job to mind us. But if we've prior experience of like threat or scary, overwhelming experiences, then our nervous system only notices that. So it becomes then all that we notice in our life is feeling stressed or feeling pain or feeling fear, feeling rage. That's all we notice. And that's because our nervous systems are doing the job that it was designed to do, to keep our attention there. Because to take our attention into like ease or things that are going okay is like taking attention away from the emergency or the threat. So it makes complete sense. But when we start to, like in a dream as well, when we start to notice in this present moment that things are okay, like it's a dream, so we can, in daytime, we can look at it as a dream, so there's enough safety. And we can then our systems, we can look at the other things that are happening, which are always there. We call it in like trauma therapy, the healing vortex. It's always there. So there's always a part of us that is actually in regulation, in ease, in coherence, and same with a dream. So we start with that place that feels where a person can feel, I feel okay, I feel grounded, I feel safe enough. And then we just go into, touch into the very edge of those other scary things. But they're a very different experience, you know. And I know I've worked with kids back in Ireland, back in Derry, and say a child who's really struggling with nightmares at night and night terrors and wakening. But we were doing just like a little play, pre-ritual bedtime. So it's like even play, you can line up your teddies and stuff. So if there's like a monster in the dream or something scary, you can during your daytime bring in these allies, you know, and even if they're not there in the dream, you can imagine them in daytime. And then they become, they've got these protective forces and stuff as well. And even playing out with all your superhero energy or with your allies, then looking at the scary thing. And the scary thing starts to become the smaller thing then. And the child, you know, I'm thinking of the person I worked with, becomes the bigger thing then. And then going to sleep, their nightmares all subsided because they felt this capacity then to be able to have strength and support around looking at this thing that's scary. And the funny thing, I'm thinking of somebody else that I worked with that was always terrified or a recurring dream, and it was always being chased and absolutely terrified. And we did a same kind of process where you could work with somatic and also imagined allies and supports. And she was able to just like turn around then a little bit, just to the glance at the side of her eye at what this big scary thing coming behind her. And she discovered like it's part of herself. It was part of her own. For her, it was like a power and a rage that she was so scared of, that disconnecting from. But she was able to start connecting with that very scary energy and that rage energy in little bits. Because rage is our life force, we need it, you know. It becomes then something that serves us. She was able to see that it wasn't so scary and start integrating that energy for herself that became for her something about self-protection. So she felt then not so vulnerable in the world. Her boundaries could be secure. She wasn't so threatened. She was safe. So, yeah, it made a difference for her in her dreams, started changing. And then in her daytime. Yeah. So
can you say a bit more about, I'm interested in disowned parts in general and how they can show up in dreams, but also you mentioned rage is that, I can't remember the words you used, life force energy.
Life force, friend, you know. To start from the rage part, I have a great supervisor and she says, you know, if people could join together in their like rage, if you can access your like rage energy, that very often we're told that's not good, you know, or we're scared of it. But if you can access that as a force for life, can you imagine the transformation? So if we all joined and we all felt this like power of this isn't okay, or this injustice, or, you know, we can all like assert our own power and feel that sense of we can support ourselves, defend ourselves, protect ourselves. Imagine the transformation around. So very often I think in our world we either have a disconnection to rage that either it becomes so impulsive that it just acts out and it wreaks havoc around, or we're so disconnected from it that at all costs we've got to be present as good and nice and pleasing of other people, you know, want to be thought of well. So we disconnect. But if we can actually connect with it in a way that starts supporting us, like we have another like emotion to support us. It's like in the wild, you know, I look at animals and they're just their natural state. So they don't try to be anything else, you know. I had one experience of, I was at a workshop once, a dream workshop, and we were using animal cards, and I got a animal card. Mine was porcupine, and I just did not want that card. And other people present, somebody had eagle. I had like pure envy, like card envy. And I was like, everyone seemed to have a great card. And somebody said to me, and I said, I need to swap my card. And she said to me, okay, if you need to, but first pause. And I'm going to ask you, what is it about this card, or what do you notice? And I said, well, it's way too prickly. You know, these porcupines. And I started like gesturing like this. And she says, notice your experience as you're doing this. And I said, because I said, oh, it feels too awkward. And I said, notice your experience. And I started saying, well, it's actually like, you know, pushing a boundary or poke back, you know. I said, actually feels kind of good. She says, yes, you need the porcupines. So in the wild, you know, animals are just in their natural states. And that includes that like aggression or that natural life force energy. And that's for their survival. Us humans tend to be like much more civilized, and it's either, you know, we like judge it or we're disconnected from it. Yeah, but it's part of our power. Yeah.
It really makes me think of, you know, this word civilised, you know, that it's a white supremacist principle, actually, that we be civilised, not rage. That's too wild. It's out of control.
Yes.
It's destructive. No, we don't do that. And the result is individuals and populations that are compliant, submissive. And even in the wellness world, more and more I'm seeing rage embraced, but there has, you know, in my early days of meditation and therapy,
Yes.
it was very, I know you want to find the calm and the grounded place and let go of anger
Yes.
and those kind of things. But more and more as I get older and probably my hormones changing a bit, and I'm really, and it's been a therapeutic process as well to reintegrate the angry part of myself. And that when I didn't have that in my 20s and teens and 20s, I was very collapsed.
Yes.
And I was very able to be kind of pushed around. I didn't have very strong boundaries.
Yes.
And the reintegration of anger and rage has been so empowering.
Yes.
And has created a safety that from which creativity can come. You know, it's opened a lot for me.
It's an energy force. Like I've just noticed, and as you describe this, Laura, and you probably feel it yourself, when you were talking about embracing like your own anger, your own rage, and owning that and embracing that, you were moving and your voice sounded different and there was energy. And then, you know, when you were talking about like being civilized and this like supremacy, like, you know, that we have, that we're just, and especially as like women, that you've got to be compliant and submissive. And the thing is that actually internalizes, that turns that, because that the anger and rage doesn't go away. You know, we're trying to get meditation and zone it out, or I shouldn't feel angry. It actually just doesn't get expressed, but it turns inwards. So it doesn't just get like, it doesn't disappear. So it becomes then an attack on ourselves. You know, hey, I'm not this, or collapse into, I couldn't do that. You know, I couldn't possibly try that or start that, or
And when you describe it gets turned in on ourselves, I imagine that comes with a whole host of compensations that our body has to make to hold that energy and keep it suppressed.
That's right. I often noticed it in myself, you know, in my work, as like chronic tensions. So I would feel it across my shoulders, base of my neck, throat. You know, so even as I'm talking now, I can feel the edge of that. But it used to actually cut my voice off. So it used to come in my throat so much that I would like not be able to speak and communicate. So it finds its way in our like systems, in our like physiology, in our interactions with each other. But it keeps us separate, you know, because if we can only be with one range of emotions, like love is very accepted or joy is accepted, you know, but if we can't be with the full range of emotions, then we can't actually be in connection or feel that we're going to be supported to be with our whole self and our full range. But when we are, then actually we're more connected. We can feel more able to engage with life and with other people. And then we have a healthy, responsive access to the range of like emotions as we need them. Sometimes we need rage.
It actually makes me think of, with my rage accessible and acceptable to me, yeah, I'm not as worried about what might happen. My anxiety has drastically decreased as my rage has come on board, because I know that if I'm in this situation or that situation or something happens, I have access to that part of me that can say, no, stop, or, you know, contain my safety, remove me from there. I don't have to think about what might happen later and be anxious about whether or not I'm going to be safe, because I have access to that force.
So isn't that interesting, Laura? Like the connection then between anxiety and rage, and potentially maybe they're the one thing, potentially it's something to be interested to explore, because anxiety tends to be this umbrella term that we call I'm anxious, but it tends to be a generalized term that is different things to different people. But when we look at our own individual experience of anxiety, often it can be something that's like driving inside that hasn't got a chance to be expressed. So when you're able to be with your, like accept and express your rightful anger, anxiety decreases, and then you're more available to like be present, to set your boundaries, you know, stronger, more sense of power, more sense of drive.
I just have this image of, you know, really great, lovely, strong boundaries around me, and just this ease, ease inside, like a tranquil pool, from which I can connect with other people.
And I feel in this moment like my feet get very, very firmly planted on the ground, and I can feel a difference in my quality of my tone and my voice. And I feel like more here, like more present, if I can be with like all of the aspects of me, including like what I call rightful anger or rightful rage, because it's very often rightful.
And we make so many parts of ourselves wrong in this. We end up disowning, cutting off all kinds of parts of us and responses and thoughts because they could be criticised by somebody, and we end up with a little sliver of person that we think is presentable enough or acceptable enough. It's a very small place from which to connect, isn't it?
And the life that comes with that, you know, from our whole potential, and then trying to make ourselves acceptable enough or safe enough to be in the world, like with that tiny slither, like I just felt the grief. I just noticed the grief of that, the loss of it. You know, if we disown all those parts of ourselves because we've been told that they're not acceptable. That's why we've disowned them. If they were celebrated and held and accepted, then we would be able to own and celebrate them, and they'd be in service of us. But when it's not supported, and we can end up feeling nearly like a shadow of ourselves in our own life, where only like a part of me is safe enough to be expressed. And then the energy and the effort that takes of holding back all those other parts of ourselves that are going to be, we fear that are going to be judged or not accepted, or I shouldn't be like this, you know, Fiona, you've no right to be like that. Yeah, we lose a big part of ourselves.
And maybe that's a part of the anxiety as well. I've got this section of me that's tolerable for others, that I think is acceptable enough to show people. But I need to make sure that none of this other stuff that is a part of who I am, because I'm a human, I haven't gotten rid of it. I'm just holding it back. I have to make sure none of that launches out. And then our environment can be scary, because our environment could cause something that we're holding back, like anger, to launch forward, and it might come out in a way that we wouldn't intend, or with more force than if it had been integrated.
That's right. And that starts another big process where, like, we're so overtaken with shame or guilt. It's like, oh my gosh, that just happened, or I did that. And then it's like another retreat, and nearly become a tinier slither of ourselves. It's like retreating and recoiling and, oh, I've got to withdraw from the world, or, you know, I can't be seen because this has happened. Yeah, so it becomes a feedback, another negative feedback, become even smaller, you know. It reminds me of when I was in my 20s, I was reading Clarissa Pinkola Estes, you know, Women Who Run with the Wolves. So this, like, iconic book that's just a long, I have my copy that's like so old, and I've taped it in at this stage. But I remember when I first came across this book, it was like, wow, because it was really about how civilized we've become, and how becoming so civilized has robbed us of so much of our nature and so much of our natural energy and power and our aliveness. It's robbed us of aliveness. So just bringing those like aspects back into us, that we're not having to recoil and hide this and the effort that it takes. Because we're humans, but we're essentially animal beings. You know, that's we're animals in our biology. So bringing back all of that, like the animal part of us, and the, you know, human thinking, relating, reflective, learning part of us, and joining in connection with each other as a whole self. Yeah. You know, I can feel that in my whole system, like as we speak, in a sense of being fuller, and a sense of being able to breathe easier, and having like more life energy. Yeah.
And when we integrate those parts that we've been holding back, they can become part of us that is aligned with how we want to be in the world. We don't have to bring in our anger and let it run riot. Bring in our anger and have this negotiation with it, where my anger and I agree about when it's coming forth. It's never a surprise.
Yes.
It's an asset to me that's working in service of me all the time.
That's the key, Laura. It serves us then. So it becomes a companion that helps propel us forward in the world, because anger is also the life energy that helps us like reach for the things that we want to reach for in life. Do the things, achieve the things that we want to. It gives us the energy to start something, carry it through, finish, you know. So it gives us a certain life energy that allows us to take and reach for and grow in our world, in our lives. Yeah, so it's an energy that serves us. Yeah. So it's a power. Yeah,
absolutely. So a little change of role now.
Okay.
Where I become your client.
All right.
For about 10 minutes. I'm just going to put a little timer on my phone. And, you know, this is very different to a normal therapy session in that I'm not generally your client. This is something we're familiar with from Gestalt training, to stepping into these roles. And also, obviously, it's a very different setting with cameras and an awareness in me that people potentially are going to see this. So that's present. And I just include that in my experience. But it is a real segment of therapy, a real exploration together. And I want to offer myself, and you are offering yourself as a therapist.
Generous, Laura.
Yeah. And it's interesting the conversation we've been having about anger. I feel like that's kind of present for me from our conversation.
Okay.
And how it presents in me and how lovely and protective and powerful it is in me. And also times when it is still a destructive force in me, moments where I notice it's jumped forward. Yeah.
So it's an invitation, Laura. And with this, like, courageous and generous, like, sharing, you know? So it's an invitation just in this moment. Just as you notice, like, this sense of anger just present in you right now. Just taking a peek, noticing, like, here with me, and that it's a friend.
Yeah, I get an image of that it's kind of here behind me. And right now it feels fun, supportive, brave. Yeah.
And sometimes, Laura, this is like an invitation. Our, like, somatic selves can offer this, like, wisdom and guidance that often we're not, like, aware of. So sometimes you'll notice, like, I speak with my hands a lot, and I'll notice also, like, little, like, movements in you. So is it okay to offer something and invite something in this moment? Okay. So it's that gesture that you just had. It feels like your anger feels right now like this. And this was the gesture that you made. So I don't know if you were aware of it when you did it. Okay. So it's an invitation just to play with this in this moment and repeating that gesture, slowing it down and just noticing your experience, not trying to do anything. Yeah. Even just slower so that you don't miss a centimetre or millimetre. See what happens in yourself.
It's like a brightness and a flourish. It's a real aliveness, actually.
Right.
I feel my chest open as I do it.
Yes.
That it feels bright, that I'm really alive and here with it.
And Laura, as you do that, I'm noticing, like, something in your expression. So just tracking that sense of, like, brightness and aliveness with your chest being open, and just feel it, like, notice it, like, through your whole self. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels, the word that comes to mind is like ballsy. Like,
yeah. You need that. And, there's a little bit of, like, here's a somatic then as well. Just, this kind of movement. And then just imagining, or just right now noticing, being with the world and being in relation with the world from this kind of, like, space and attitude and energy. Yeah. And being curious about how this supports you and how this might, how this might support you in this moment. Yeah.
It's a real kind of moving forward, taking up space.
Right.
Being in something.
Right.
And I can also feel, I guess, the shadow of that, or the fear of that it might be too much.
Okay.
I might take up too much space, or maybe even miss the other person because I'm so big in this.
And Laura, it's interesting because this supports more aliveness and being forward, and you'd said at the start about sometimes anger can feel it comes forward fast, faster than you, and this sense of, like, being too much. So that's, like, story familiar to you. So noticing again, just being in yourself from this like bright, alive kind of state. Yeah. And then just coming like just playing with a little bit because it brings you forward. Yeah. Just not too much. Yeah, just the tiniest wee bit. Just like being with this. You know, can I offer something? Because when you are like this and feeling the energy and there's something in your voice and your tone, you feel more present to me, Laura. And it feels actually that I'm meeting you and there's more connection. Yeah. So it's something that my heart goes, here's Laura. And I'm meeting Laura. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel more like me. Not a watered down, palatable version, but a really here version. Yeah.
So even just like taking a linger and a peek at that, you know, the potential of that, of not having to be a more watered down version, being a less watered down version, and more of yourself here in this moment, you know? And even just imagine taking like your environment in, just notice and imagining, right? I can be more of me, less watered down, right now here with Fiona.
Yeah. I'm just noticing that you look really clear to me right now. I can really see you. I feel very connected to you, more so than in our conversation. But really, I feel like I can see you so clearly all of a sudden.
And I have this something that comes up like this. It's a bubble of joy, Laura, as I hear you say that. And when I hear you say, like, you can see clearly, this is also what often happens with our, like, vagus nerve and our brainstem, that when we have, like, a moment of regulation, like this with you can be you, our eyesight clears. So we end up having more, like, sense of clarity. So maybe it's you can see me, I can see you, Laura.
Yeah, so it's not just a one-way thing when I'm present and alive. It invites that for us both. Yeah.
It's like there's something in the being with, you know, and the being met. So being able to be with this and brighten aliveness and being able to see, you know, and see more clearly and in a different way. The quality of our conversation, I feel it too, Laura. It's come with more like ease and more, than even our prior conversation.
Yeah. And what I was thinking of as that it might be too much when I'm sort of taking up some more space like this. Yeah, I'm kind of realizing in this conversation that it's actually, I'm really inhabiting myself, and that's something for the other to be able to connect with.
Yes. And as you are more of you in this moment, Laura, I feel I can be more of me also. But taking up your space, like more of you in this moment, and it comes with a reaching forward, like it comes with a moving forward. So noticing that you can be with your rage and power, and it actually supporting more connection.
Yeah, that it's not, when I'm inhabiting myself more, it doesn't mean less for you. I think that's what I was kind of thinking before, that if I'm taking up more space, it leaves less space for somebody else, but that's not actually
That's
true, is it?
not, Laura. That feels like a really important kind of moment. So just even letting that, like here with me, so noticing, if you take up it's not leaving any less for me. It's inviting actually more of you and more of me. Yeah. So maybe there's an experience I can be more of me.
Yeah. I feel like I learned something very important in my body through that.
Thank you, Laura. And it's a mutual because I've benefited from that too. So I feel something in myself as well that just invites more presence. And thank you.
Thank you.
So just like you're doing, you just give it like a moment because it's just a moment to integrate.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a really interesting experiment, and just from the movement, so much information came.
And it even looked, Laura, like the movement. It's almost like see me. You know, it's this and bright and aliveness, and it's also like a see me, like from a somatic self, and then an experience of, hey, I can be me and all of me, and not diminishing anybody else or whatever that old story was, that I'm too much, you know? It's like, no, I can be me and the other can like move to meet me in there, see me too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really helpful.
It's interesting, Laura, isn't it, when it comes from a gesture that you made, but that you weren't aware of. Yeah. We human beings, our whole self is ready with a whole lot of resources and guidance and insight and support that's always there available to us. We often don't notice it because we're with our old story. Like, I'm too much. You know, if I reveal this or if I express this, then I make the other less. Too much. And then our somatic story is a different story in this case. It's like,
There was some research that you mentioned, a study about being with others. Can you say a little bit about that?
I've come across this fairly recently, and it's a psychiatrist, Ian McGilchrist, and he is one of those courageous therapists like yourself, Laura, who set himself up with his own therapist in session, in an ordinary session, and he was really interested to discover what happens in his brain and nervous system in like a therapy session. So he had like the electrodes and wired up to himself and also to his therapist. And what he expected to find as a scientist was that part of the very human part of our system, the newest part of our brain, would be working really hard, or firing up a lot to support connection. But he discovered that actually that's not what happened at all. It was that thinking, reflective part of the human brain was actually very quiet. And it was the part of our brain that does the scanning for us, called neuroception, the part that picks up is there a hint of something in our environment. It was actually quieter. So that part of the brain is called amygdala. So it was quieter than him, and it was quieter in his therapist. So what he discovered was it's actually the being with another human being, like nervous system to nervous system and physical proximity, actually was a soother to his amygdala, to both our amygdalas, which is things are okay, we can just be. And what I loved with this research as well, when they tracked the conversation in the transcript, he found that the the quietest moments in the amygdala, the moments of connection, were actually the silent moments. It might just be a nod or like an eye gaze, or just like a quiet moment, just he and his therapist. And they were both healing, just in connection. So not needing like lots of tools and strategies, but just being with another human being who's able to come with their whole self and their vulnerable self. Just being with another human being is healing in itself, does the healing. Yeah.
And I think that's part of what happened in our segment of therapy, that I brought something, you noticed more about it and deepened my awareness of it. And you were just with me in that, with curiosity.
And the with, Laura, just touches my heart. Because when just two people can just be with each other. I'm noticing the soft gaze in my eyes, and I'm seeing the soft gaze in your eyes. Like just the wash of just ease with this. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If this conversation resonated with you, hit subscribe and click the link below to download the Source app. It's free to get started and helps you find a therapist who truly fits fast.